You are listening to the Casting Shadows podcast, a projection across the present to the past and future of the Casting Shadows blog and the YouTube channel, better known, like me, its host, as Runeslinger. This first segment of the podcast this week is the RPG A Day 2024 Week 2 survey of cool responses to the RPG A Day 2024 prompts for this week. This episode of the podcast is the second in a 5-part series intended to look at some of the posts from each week of the 2024 event that I particularly enjoyed and wanted to share. This list is not exhaustive. There's a lot of great stuff out there, and it's easy to find. Search for the hashtag RPGAday 2024, view posts, enjoy the posts, leave a quick like, maybe a comment, possibly a share. These tiny gestures and the willingness to leave human traces behind you can mean a lot to the people who are producing these things. People who are launching a new blog, people who have ventured onto a new platform such as Blue Sky and trying to find new friends. Letting people know that you are there and sharing the stuff that they write or create that you enjoy, it means a lot. And it helps other people find cool stuff. All right, let's get into the list for week 2. This week I'm drawing mainly from blogs, which, as a venue for RPG conversation, these days are struggling back into view after a lengthy cooling off period. The week 2 list was not compiled in accordance with the chronological presentation of the prompts, but instead just has a sort of faux randomness to it. The second segment of this episode deals with the AAA game's recent publication, Mordavia, Land of Horror. I hope you'll stick around and listen to that. It's not that long, although the book is huge. The third and final segment of this week's episode, it's comprised of my own responses for this week of RPG A Day 2024. But if you've been following along on YouTube with the random shorts that I've been releasing, or following along daily on the Casting Shadows podcast, you don't need to listen to that part. You already know everything I'm going to say. But if you haven't seen those things, you might want to stick around, because it will definitely be the shortest way to be exposed to that information anywhere, even shorter than the shorts. The first blog I'll mention is Halls of the Nephilim, and the post I'm singling out for attention this week is from day 5. Great writing. The post, and its link, is in the show notes, everyone. The post features the fun cover art and a rationale for selecting Eden Studios' classic cinematic Unisystem games. Go read the article to find out why. The next item on the list is not a blog, unlike most of the entries this week, but is instead RPGNet. Believe it or not, but that venerable purple-hued site has a thread dedicated to RPG A Day every year, and they're often a lot of fun to read through. I've posted a link in the show notes, starting on page 8 of this year's thread, but there's lots of good stuff all through the thread. The next example is the Dodecahedroid blog, and its entry for day 7, an RPG with good form. This prompt stumped more than a few people, but the attitude and the content of the response from this blog were great and refreshing. What did they choose? Follow the link in the show notes to find out. The next example is the well-known Stargazer's World blog. When you check out their post for day 8 using the alternate prompt list, you'll instantly see why the blog has lasted so long and kept such a good reputation. Day 8, Experiment, coupled with a D10 roll that bade the blogger create a random encounter, is pretty cool, with tie-ins to other days. As an added bonus, you may not know, but one of Stargazer's World's authors has been Roberto Micheri, and he's been kind enough to provide translations for RPG A Day for many years, so we owe him a lot. So while you're visiting the blog, you might do a search for some of his writing too. Have I included a link to the site? Why, yes, I have. Amazing. The next blog in the list is another old favorite among RPG blog readers. It's called The Other Side. The entry from its host, Timothy Brannon, is for day 11, and it offers a very detailed argument for checking out basic fantasy, one shot at a time. But a counter-argument gets made on the same day by Free Thrall at the Stochasium blog, using a similar rationale, but for a different game. Which game? What rationale? Check them both out using the links provided in the show notes. Okay, that is a lot of blogs to suggest to people from this second week of August and second week of RPG A Day 2024. But I'm not quite finished with recommendations just yet. As we mentioned earlier in the month, a lot of RPG conversation has flowed back into private communities, such as with Discord groups and servers. 2 Discord servers that I would recommend this week, which have active and positive groups creating and celebrating RPG A Day 2024 prompts. Well, they're the Third Floor Wars server, which has been incredibly active, and the Audio Dungeon server, which is home to the Anchor RPG podcaster diaspora, which has been incredibly active for years. And those people show no sign of giving up the RPG A Day spirit. They're awesome. Anyway, I hope you had a great week, that you had fun answering or at least reading the answers of others all week. This segment about cool posts that other people made will return next week with another selection of posts that I liked from the event, drawn from various corners of the internet. But these are just my picks. What posts did you like? What new posters did you subscribe to or follow? Feel free to call in and share here or contact me by the other means provided in the show notes. Sharing ideas, sharing experiences, sharing laughter, and shining the light of imagination in the life of anyone open to it, this is the heart of our hobby. Last week, I described the lengthy Great Campaign from Triple Ace Games for their Ubiquity role-playing system title, Leagues of Adventure. That title is also readily useful for an approach to play via their Leagues of Gothic Horror line, giving it a distinctly different and somewhat more challenging flavor. So, this week, I thought it would be a good follow-on segment and tie in nicely with my answer for Day 5 of RPG A Day 2024 to talk about Triple Ace's most recent release, Mordavia, Land of Horror. We'll be taking a look at this book on the YouTube channel soon, but here, this will be a brief audio overview to share some thoughts on the book. Mordavia started life as a dark glimmer in the mind's eye of writer extraordinaire Paul Wade Williams, known lovingly as Wiggy. Started many years ago, and it originally entered print as a powerful 64-page appetizer, which has since come into its full potency as a 212-page feast of mystery, magic, monsters, and atmosphere that conspires with the GM to help shape Mordavia into that European vacation the characters will never forget, but will be willing to die trying to. Part history, part gazetteer, part bestiary, and who's who, Mordavia has many truths, half-truths, and beautiful lies for the discerning GM to pick through and place raw and mobile on the player's plates. It can be nothing more than a terrifying setting for a few random or linked adventures. It can be just that hint of corruption and danger while passing through on business to other parts of the continent. Or, best of all, it can be the setting for the age-old war of good versus evil, which can only end in a slow descent into madness or a painful and potentially corrupting climb out of madness's maw. Not originally intended as one of the many horrors of Mordavia, though, one extra thing was delivered along with the full-color print and PDF copies of the setting. And that thing was the retirement notice from Wiggy, letting us know that Mordavia would be his last original work. While he and I are in the process of finishing up an earlier project that will ultimately be released after Mordavia was, that's just the mystique of publishing and playing with perception. Mordavia is the actual end of that age. You can find Mordavia for sale at AAA's Games at AAA'sgames.com in PDF, or you can find it in print on demand and PDF from locations like Drive-Thru RPG. The link is in the show notes. All right, to round out this episode, we'll end with a quick flyby or drive-by of my responses for Week 2 of RPG A Day 2024. Week 2 runs from the 5th prompt all the way to the 11th prompt. Prompt 5 was a difficult one for me because it's talking about an RPG with great writing. And if you listen to the previous segment, you'll know that this year brought me some bad news in the form of the loss of a great writing career. So that post was particularly important for me. That meant it got a blog post and a YouTube short. Day 6 was talking about RPGs that are easy to use, but I decided to just use the keyword prompt, the one in bold, about easy, and talk about RPG Day itself. Day 7, the most, apparently, confusing prompt ever in the history of RPG A Day, an RPG with good form. There have been fantastic responses to this out there on the internet. Mine seems pale in comparison, but I make some recommendations about different shapes for RPGs and make a recommendation for a particular noteworthy RPG from 2024, which makes maximum use of the form. Check that out. Day 8, an accessory you appreciate. I have presented what I think is a worthy successor to the Crown Royal dice bag. You can read about it and see pictures about it on the blog, castingshadowsblog.com, or I think more enjoyably, see it in its full glory in a YouTube short on youtube.com/runeslinger. For day 9, the prompt was an accessory you'd like to see, but I haven't been making very good use of the alternate list of prompts that were supplied to us, and so on that day, I chose the prompt Heroes. What was the random quest that I got? Well, check it out on the blog and see. It may involve a random table. For day 10, I went back to the standard prompts and presented an RPG I think would work very, very well as a series on television. The particular RPG that I mentioned is about to be blasted back into our consciousness as its new edition, its Recontact edition. Yes, I'm speaking about Blue Planet. Will be coming out later this year. Very excited about that. If you're curious about my relationship with Blue Planet, do a search on my blog for Blue Planet Curse. I love this game a lot, but many things keep getting in the way of me playing it. The last day in week 2 is day 11, an RPG with well-supported one-shots. And I chose this day to once again go back into the list of alternate prompts, and I took Invasion. And the random die roll led me to provide an audio prop from our ongoing Call of Cthulhu campaign, Turn of a New Leaf, as seen on the YouTube channel. If you're curious, check it out on YouTube. All right, how about that? We have managed to do 7 prompts in 4 minutes. You have been listening to the Casting Shadows podcast, and I thank you for doing so. If you want to contact the show, which would be great, details have been provided in the show notes. If you want to leave a voice message, check out speakpipe.com/castingshadowspodcast, and that's all one word. If you want to know what I've been up to for RPG a Day in more detail than presented in this episode, you can find daily posts on castingshadowsblog.com, and you can find random shorts on youtube.com/runeslinger. Okay, that's the end of the episode. Until next week, take care.